is that it was both parents that passed away, and I was dealing with one of the siblings. And she was really in a lot of emotional pain. She was in a lot of tears because the family assets, which wasn't much, but it was a lot to them. It was a house and 2 vehicles. And there was nothing there as far as what's going to happen with those assets. And the family members was fighting and screaming and yelling at each other over this house that the mother and dad left. And there was nothing there to actually help them and how to resolve that. And that there was bills, as far as that needed to be paid. And they were coming to me to get some financing and to help them bury their loved ones. And it's that's a very difficult thing that actually see and have to go through, especially when the money is not prepared. I know most of us are probably aware of a last will and testament. So if you were to pass away, I know it's a joyful day and it's Valentine's Day, but I just want to keep in the theme of taking care of your loved ones, and it's an elaborate thing. And this is just part of taking care of your loved ones. And when one passes, you want to make sure that whatever your wishes and desires are met, and that you're able to take care of the family members and have an outline that you were able to put together. And so, who I would like to introduce to you, actually, I met him through doing some business. And one thing that I loved about this gentleman when I was in his office is the way that of all the things that was being thrown at him, the being focused on the matter at hand, the facts in hand of what was going on. He didn't let all those other things kind of distract you. You got to watch out for, a lot of times people get distracted and not able to get the task done. And that's one thing I like about this gentleman I'm about to introduce to you. His name is Christopher K. Ellie. He's a respected and attorney here, a state attorney here in Stockton. And I would like to introduce to you Christopher K. Ellie. I'm twisted today. It's like cake that's a little moist. Got my tongue stuck in the roof around here. And he's going to go ahead and explain to you a little bit about estate planning and how to. Well, I'll let him explain. He's better at this than me. All right. Here you go.
Derek, thank you for inviting me today. It's been wonderful, not just the food. The food was great, but also getting to know what you people do. It's wonderful what you do, and you can really feel the spirit that exists in this center. And so I'm glad to learn about that. I'm here today to talk about the legal consequences of death and incompetence. Lawyers deal with that all the time, which explains why people don't really like to talk to lawyers, because that's kind of a depressing subject, isn't it? People don't just drop by and say, "Hey, Chris, can we talk about death?" But you have to think about it. You have to think about it, because when one's loved one passes away, it does make us think about our own mortality, and it makes us think about our relationship with our Creator, and makes us more spiritual in some ways, and that's a good thing. But the possibility of inheriting, of getting money for free, brings out the worst in me. I've seen it, Derek has seen it. And if you don't have, people are tempted, if it's not organized, people are tempted to get into a mad scramble for those things that are out there. So that the best thing that we can do for our loved ones is not to lead them into temptation, but instead have some sort of a plan by which they know that somebody's in charge and who's going to get what. And then if you tell people, this is what I want you to do, they will follow it. But if you don't tell them, it can get ugly. And it's not hard to do, it really isn't, but it has to be done right. I had a client that came to me, she came to me too late, because she had some money, and somebody had told her, you put it in joint tenancy. Because if you put it in joint tenancy, when you die, it goes to your kids. So she took her money and she put it in 3 different accounts, joint tenancy accounts, with her 3. You're looking at me like she's crazy, and you're right, she was crazy, because It goes to your kids when you die, but it also goes to them right now. That was the problem. Nobody told her that putting in the joint tenancy allowed those kids to get that money right then. So when we tracked the son down, he was up in, I think it was in Seattle. He had gone through the money, he had spent it on drugs and alcohol, and he, while in a drunken stupor, had stopped in front of a truck, and boom. So she was then broke and heartbroken and also feeling guilty because she had mishandled her money. It did not have to be that way. It could have been a little bit different. If she had marked along a different box a little bit differently, it would have been better. It's not that hard to do, but it's got to be done right. So let's talk about that. Now, one of the things we want to dispel right away is if you don't have a will, it doesn't mean that your money goes to the state. Arnold doesn't get it, so don't worry about that, okay? If you die without a will, it's probably going to go to your spouse. Now, if it's something that you guys accumulated during your marriage, it's going to go to your spouse even without a will. And if you don't have a spouse, it's going to go to your kids. And if you don't have any kids, it's going to go to your parents. We'll find somebody before it goes to the state, so don't worry about that. And also, a lot of the stuff that we have these days can be in an account which goes to somebody on death. It's like a pay on death account. Like if you have an IRA account, it says where your money goes when you die. Or if you have 401k or deferred comp from work, or if you got those kind of things. Remember, you got that form and the type is real small and you have to look at it and you can see it, and you write in there and you write your spouse's name on the first line, and then you write your kid's name on the second line, and that takes care of that. So in a lot of circumstances, you've taken care of that. That's a good thing. The problem with that is it's not real flexible, because you just write into that little line, you write my spouse, and then my 3 kids, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, that are going to go right in there. But suppose that one of them passes away before you do. Do you want it to go to the other 2? Or do you want it to go to their kids? Or maybe we want it to go to their kids, but you know the youngest one is not real. We don't want it to go to him. And we sure don't want to go to his spouse. And so maybe we want it to go to the other kids, we'll have it in trust, but you can't put all of that in that little line there, can you? That's the problem. That's why you might want to have a will. So there are times when you don't need a will, but there are times, depending on the size of your estate and how complicated it is, where you might want to have that. And it's a good to have. A lot of times we'll have a will, we call a backup will. Because if we do it right, we might not need the will, because it's all going to be like by this pay on death account. You don't have to worry about it. But something could happen where you say you inherit something out of the blue you forgot about, right? If you win the lottery and you don't put that into the right account, then you want to have a backup will, which will take care of those things. And wills are not hard. You guys have all heard about them. They're not hard to do. And you don't want to do, you could do them yourselves, but you don't want to. You don't want to. I had a client her dad just hated lawyers. He just thought, oh, I'm going to do this myself. And he drafted his own will. And because he just didn't want to have to pay a lawyer. He never did. But his estate was done incorrectly because of the will. And he wound up paying 3 lawyers for 5 years, fighting over it. He could have saved so much money if he just hired us in the first place. So it's just not that hard if you use the will and correctly specify where the property goes and who gets it. Who gets it, and the most important thing also is who's going to do it. Who is going to be the executor? Who's going to take care of that? That's not an easy role. Right? It's going to be probably one of your kids or your spouse, or one of them's going to have to do that. It's a tough role because they're going to have to tell their siblings, no, you don't get to get it all right now, and this is how we have to do it, and hold your horses, we're going to have to take care of this. It's a tough job, but that's an important thing, to be able to figure out who's the right person to do that. But done correctly, it'll easily pass property on at your death, and it's relatively inexpensive. The problem with a will these days is if you have to, then if you pass away, then you have to go to court. It's a probate. You have to go to court, the lawyer has to go to court, you don't have to go to court, you're dead. But your lawyer goes to court, right?